Do you want to optimize your AK to work with your night vision? Well, check out this video and let's talk about some different ways we can achieve that. So there's a few things that we need on our AK so that it works with our night vision. Night vision views the world through the infrared spectrum. So some of the light sources that we pick up with night vision, you cannot see with the normal human eye. For that reason, infrared lasers and illuminators, as well as night vision settings on optics, are going to be crucial to being able to utilize your night vision with your firearm. AR-15s are inherently going to be a little bit easier to set up for use with night vision than an AK, since these already come with all of the 1913 rails and mounts to attach your lights and lasers and your optics to. Where when you're picking up an AK from the factory, your factory AKM typically doesn't have any type of 1913 to mount anything to it. It's just going to have that factory wood or polymer handguards. So you're going to have to swap a lot of that out in order to mount the things that you need to utilize your firearm with your night vision. So this base rifle here is an Arsenal SLR106CR. Came from the factory with polymer furniture, no way to mount any type of optics or lights or lasers other than the factory side optic mount, which can work to some degree depending on your setup. Now, in order to get this AK to work with my night vision, it kind of all started with this MMS modular handguard. The MMS handguard is a 4-piece modular handguard. You can choose from different length lower handguards. You can run it with or without the railed gas tube, and you can attach options such as this 1913 optic mount. The MMS mounts by clamping to the barrel back here just in front of the rear sight block. This allows the railed gas tube and the lower handguard to freely float so that it doesn't alter the zero on anything mounted to that railed gas tube. This makes it a perfect host to mount your infrared laser and illuminator. As you can see back here, I have the MMS 1913 optic mount, which I put a Promethean LP1 red dot optic on top of that. And together these work really well because, as you can tell, this laser sits a little bit tall on top of that railed gas tube. So in order to actually utilize this red dot and see through it without my view being obstructed, it has to sit a little bit higher. So this optic has a 1/3 co-witness height, so it sits about 1.6 inches above the rail, and that allows it to clear that IR laser and illuminator very well. This particular IR laser illuminator is a HoloSun LS321R. It has a visible red laser, an IR illuminator, and an IR laser. So it has all three built into this one unit here. One of the cool features about having a IR laser unit with a vis laser is that if it's slave to the IR laser, you can actually zero this unit or get really close to zeroing it without actually having to fire any rounds. So that's pretty cool to have. But ultimately, the main things that you're looking for is an IR laser and an IR illuminator. Those are the two things that are going to be working in conjunction with your night vision. Most optics are going to come from the factory with night vision settings. The night vision settings are very low settings that are not very useful with the naked eye, but under night vision, you're going to be able to pick up those red dots without having to damage the tubes or just be too bright to use under night vision. So you might ask, why have multiple aiming systems for use with the night vision? Well, there's two different ways that we can use our night vision with our rifle. We have passive aiming and we have active aiming. Passive aiming allows us to just use this red dot, look through that, and we'll be able to aim and shoot just with the optic that's already installed on the rifle. You don't have to re-zero anything. It's that same zero that you use in the daytime. You just put it in night vision mode and you are good to go. This is a really good option for those that don't want to spend money on a IR laser and illuminator unit. Just this by itself is going to work pretty good in a lot of cases. Where this is going to kind of fall short is when you're trying to shoot at distance. Under nods, you're looking through this optic. So that's going to affect the clarity and it's going to affect how far you're able to actually see and identify targets. Now, another reason for this taller optic, and one of the big reasons that you're seeing a lot of people switch to taller optics on rifles is so they can utilize it with their night vision. All right, and just for a quick demonstration on what I'm talking about here, is when you have your night vision on and you're trying to aim, if this optic is set really low, or if it's mounted on the gas tube or on a really low co-witness mount, you're gonna have a really hard time aligning your night vision up with that sight to aim passively. So you're gonna see a lot of taller mounted optics so that when they look through them, it's very easy to get behind that, and you don't have to do any type of weird, uncomfortable neck maneuvers to get on your sights. Now, passive aiming works fine, but I think across the board, most people will prefer active aiming using an IR laser and illuminator. So the pros of your IR laser and illuminator are that you don't actually have to get behind the sights. You don't really even have to get a cheek weld on this. You just need to bring it up, activate it, and where it points, your bullets are gonna go. Now you can get hits out. I've gotten hits out to about 200 yards under this IR laser, and this is just a commercial spec laser. Military grade lasers are typically restricted to law enforcement and military, unfortunately, so sometimes it's difficult to get your hands on those, and even when you can, it's on the secondhand market and they're going to be very expensive. But for most of us, this LS321R from Holliston works really good. It has those 3 settings in there. Another laser unit I like to use a lot is the Steiner D-Ball 9007, which is actually discontinued, but you can still find them. They're similarly priced to these, but they do not have that Viz laser. But again, it has a good IR laser and illuminator, and those are the 2 important things that you want to look for in your unit. Now, one of the big downsides to having an IR laser and illuminator on your rifle is that not only will you be able to see the light that is emitted from this, but so will everybody else, including people that you might not want to see it. So a lot of people will have their passive aiming optic available as a backup in case maybe somebody out there has night vision capabilities, and they might want to turn off that laser and just switch to passive aiming, because this has a lot lower light emission from it. So we have our optic tall enough to use with our night vision if we're going to passively aim. It's also tall enough to see over our IR laser. Our IR laser's here up front. That gives us the ability to aim actively, so we're good there. We have 2 ways that we can use this rifle with our night vision. But another thing we want to take into consideration is when we want to switch to white light. So there's several reasons why we might have to quickly go from night vision to white light on our rifle. One of the reasons could be that we're in a structure and there's lights on in that structure, and it's not the proper environment to use our night vision. It might be too bright for it to work well. It could wash out, and that's not going to help us too much. Another thing we want to consider is if we find ourselves working on a team, or there's other people with us and they don't have night vision capabilities, they're going to be running white light mostly. So we want to have that capability as well and be able to switch very quickly back and forth. The way I run mine is I always run my white lights, even when I'm not running an IR laser, behind my thumb. So I can run back, hit my white light, and if I need my IR, I just shift forward and I can get to that activation switch. If you're running a longer rail or a gas tube and this sits too far forward to hit the button, then you just need to get an external button on there and you can set it up wherever is most comfortable for you. Another thing to consider when we're optimizing our firearm for use with night vision is the muzzle device and how much flash is emitted from that when shooting in low light or even no light situations. So even if you're not under night vision and it's dark out, you don't want people to necessarily see your flash. So that could be an issue. That's something you need to take into consideration. The easiest, cheapest way to go about that is to just run a flash hider on your firearm. Now, the downside to having a flash hider is that it doesn't do much to mitigate recoil, and that might be something that's important to you. You might want to have the ability to shoot fast and shoot flat in certain situations. So something like this 360 HD muzzle device on here, this is going to put off some flash, but there's some options for it. So if you have a muzzle device that's compatible with a suppressor, that's going to be your best option, because if you go with a suppressor, this one's a Silencerco Omega 300, and If you attach a suppressor to a muzzle brake, now it's going to mitigate that flash that would otherwise be coming out of the end of your rifle. So if you have a suppressor, you got the best of both worlds. Another option, if you can't own a suppressor, you just don't want to go through the headache of owning one, you can go with something like the flash reduction device from JMac Customs, which is a two-piece style muzzle device that effectively eliminates or greatly reduces any of the flash that's going to come out, and that just directly attaches to your threads. That's a great option as well. But you're going to see in most situations, anybody that's running a rifle optimized for night vision use is typically going to be running a suppressor on that as well. Let's do a quick head-to-toe overview of what I have going on here on this Arsenal SLR106CR. So starting at the end here, like I previously mentioned, I got a Silencer Co. Omega 300 suppressor, and that's directly attached to a JMac Customs 360 HD X37 device. So that gives me a couple options. I also have the option of running a blast diversion shield, which isn't going to help mitigate flash too much, but it will send that blast and concussion forward. Moving on back, I have a Cloud Defense Rain Micro. This is one of the original ones. This thing's a little bit bigger than what they got out now, but this thing is built like a tank. Laser, mentioned this previously, it's a Holosun LS321R. They also have a LS321G that's going to have a green visible laser. This one has a red visible laser. This is a very affordable device that has both an IR laser and illuminator, and I'd highly recommend you checking this out if you're a little bit tight on a budget. Working our way down, I have the JMac HRD EXT. This is the hand retention device. And what this does is it gives me a good index point for where my hand needs to be. For example, typically when I'm shooting, I'm running this in between these two fingers. So that's a good index point. I can feel it. I know that when I bring my thumb back, it's gonna be right on my white light. And when I'm gonna be using my IR unit, I'm gonna just go ahead and slide that one finger forward and my hand's in the perfect position to activate that switch. So I know exactly where I wanna be, because it's important that you don't accidentally hit your white light when you're trying to utilize night vision. Because obviously that's going to potentially let the targets know where you're located, and it kind of defeats the whole purpose of using night vision. I kind of flip this over to the other side here. You can see this RCQD bridge. What this thing does is it gives me a spot to attach a QD sling, and it also strengthens this MMS lower handguard, because you can tell this particular model has a cutout where the sling loop protrudes from the handguard. That would typically weaken the material, but this RCQD makes it much more rigid, and again, it is going to act as a way to attach a sling, so that works really good for a couple different reasons. This MMS is the 10.1 inch MMS with the GT AKM gas tube, and back here I'm running the 1913 optic mount for the MMS. The optic on here is a lead and steel Promethean LP1, 1/3 co-witness QD built into the riser, and it's the perfect height for this setup, and that is one of the reasons I went with this. It also has a really a very generous window as you're looking through it. You can switch the reticles to a dot, a circle dot, or just a circle. So it's nice, it has that option to configure the reticle that way. Going back here, JMac Customs SPG AK skeletonized pistol grip. And then I have a TS9P triangle stock attached using an SM 4.5 adapter. And I have a 0.25 inch cheek riser. Now when I'm shooting this, the way in which I shoot and I'm aligning those sights, I've become accustomed to using taller optics, so the cheek riser doesn't really bother me. And even if I ran a larger cheek riser there, it wouldn't make much of a difference, just the way I have my face positioned. But if having a taller optic like this bothers you and you have a hard time getting on that optic, then you could run a larger cheek riser and kind of use that as an index point, and that might help you kind of get a little bit more used to running these taller optics with night vision. So let's talk about my night vision helmet setup. real quick. The helmet itself is a Team Windy X-Fill Carbon bump helmet. It's not ballistic rated, saves a little bit of weight, and it also gives me some vents in here. So out in the Arizona desert, I get a little bit of air flow inside of the helmet. The night vision itself are L3 RNVGs from TNVC, attached to a Wilcox mount. And then for ear pro, I am just running some Peltor Sport 100s on a helmet adapter. Oh, and a little Streamlight admin light there, which is nice to use. So pretty basic on the helmet setup, trying to keep that weight down as much as I can. And this works really good for me. So there you have it, an AK optimized for night vision use. Have you tried to shoot an AK under night vision? What ways do you set yours up? Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.